Hi guys. So I wanted to share with you guys a little bit more about a very important day in my life that forever changed me. It was the year 2023, 5 months after being newlywed, and I was in the highest spirits of getting physically prepared to get pregnant. My mother and I had just purchased our own home, and together we were able to do this, of having this house together with my mom. And so my mom and I actually agreed with my husband that my husband and I could take the master bedroom so that we could have enough room for three. And my husband and I, he had just come up on his car lease and he turned in his sedan car for a mini SUV so that this could be like our first family car. And I felt like things were slowly but surely falling into place for both of us. And so I scheduled an appointment for me to be able to see my OBGYN doctor to discuss some of my concerns about getting off birth control and just trying to get pregnant. And so keep in mind that I was already concerned about my uterus not being able to have like regular periods and abnormal discharge. And so I asked if there was a way that they could actually perform an ultrasound for me so that they could see the lining of my uterus if that had become already less thick with the use of birth control. That's the reason why they gave me birth control in the beginning, was to reduce the thickening of my uterus. And so my doctor arranged the request and for that ultrasound. But what came back in my results was not what I wanted to hear. I want to thank you for being here, for listening. This is Cancer at 34, where I bring awareness of facing cancer at a young age and finding hope in the midst of it. And so, going back to my results showed that there was an internal part of my uterus that was still thick. And so, if I was trying to get pregnant, my doctor suggested that I get a DNC procedure. So, this procedure was a small procedure that requires very minimum anesthesia, but you still need to have this procedure with anesthesia. And so, what this procedure does is remove the thick tissue inside your uterus. And I was able to go back home that same day as well. And my OBGYN doctor had scheduled me for a follow up appointment to see how I felt after that procedure. And I remember it was on a Thursday. And I just remember like this happened last week where I received a call on a Friday that my OBGYN doctor wanted to see me on Monday instead. And that she also suggested that I bring my husband with me. And so when I heard this, my heart just sank to the ground. And I just already knew and feared that my worst nightmare had come true. And I received that phone call 10 minutes before 5 o'clock as I was getting ready to get off work. And so I could no longer think or even look at my computer screen. So I crawled into my bed and I lay there crying. I just literally said, I'm off work as soon as 5 hit. And I went to my bed and I started crying. And so it was something that was very difficult for me because I didn't know how to process it. I just had like the most gut wrenching feeling when I received that phone call. And so my gut was just telling me, like I wasn't going to be able to have kids. And so Monday arrives and I'm sitting in my OBGYN's doctor room with my husband. My mom was also in there, and my younger sister was actually waiting for us in the lobby. And I can almost like 100% with accuracy say that she had left me as her last visit that day to give me the news that I had endometrial cancer. And my mom, she just immediately had tears running down her face. And I remember my husband's expression went from being present to being in shock. And I'm just sitting there trying to process everything that's being told to me while my doctor's trying really hard to not cry in front of me, but fails to do so. And so after that visit, right across my doctor's office, there's a coffee shop. And so we decided to get something to drink so that we could take that edge off before we decided to go drive back home. And honestly, while we were sitting there, all we could do was just cry inside the coffee shop because the news felt very overbearing for all of us. And there was just so much uncertainty that like kicked in, and there was just a lot of fear. And so my OBGYN doctor also stated that I would need to see my oncologist right away to try and determine how advanced my cancer was. And this was my journey where I began my treatment and all my other appointments with my doctors. And so my oncologist had me run, I remember, some blood work. It was a CT scan with and without contrast. Then I also did an MRI to see if there was any tumor that would help pinpoint it. And so once he saw my exams, he was able to kind of estimate at what stage my cancer was. And so the approximate staging of my cancer was stage 2, and he recommended that I get a full hysterectomy. And he said I could try and freeze my eggs if my ovaries looked okay after the surgery, but if he determined that it was better to remove them due to spread, then there was no way of saving my eggs. And so when he told me this, it was very heavy for me because I had dreams of being a mother and I had never conceived a child. So it was my first time trying to get pregnant, and I just couldn't bear the news. And I just remember sitting in his office just crying as my hopes of becoming a mother had been squashed. And I remember sitting in his office. My husband was just watching me cry as he explained to me the hysterectomy procedure. And I couldn't even fully hear what he was saying to me as I was fighting back my tears. And he then finishes with, I will give you some time to think about it if you want to proceed with the surgery or not, but this will help to prevent the cancer from further spread. And in my mind, I just remember going kind of like blank, numb. I couldn't think anymore after that. And it was a very sad drive home for my husband and I, but something in my heart was telling me that I should go forward with this. And I just knew in my heart that I wanted to stand a chance against cancer, that determined me that I should go through with this procedure. And so it was just a hard procedure because I had to prepare myself for what I was about to endure. I had to take leave from work to recover from the surgery. And it was about 6 weeks that the doctor had said that I would need to take off of work. And the craziest thing for me was that I was leaving work and I had just been transferred to a new office because I had just gotten a promotion and I was barely completing my training, and I had just finished my probation period as well before I left. And so it was January 29th, 2024, as I was scheduled for my robotic assisted hysterectomy. And this was definitely a major surgery for me, as it was my first surgery ever done before. And my whole family came that day. They stayed at the park that was close to the hospital, and they waited for me all day, kind of. And as they saw that surgery kept getting longer and longer, I was literally in the hospital for some time. They decided to, some of them, head back home. And so it made me very thankful and appreciative that everybody wanted to be there for me. And it was just a very hard situation that you're not aware when you're unconscious and being under, that everybody's there for you, whether in spirit, prayer, they were just there for me. So I definitely appreciated that. And I had um my whole family there for me, and so it was a very important deal for me. And I just remember that day as the room being so, so cold, when I was in the hospital, the room just being so cold, and my body kind of went like into this shock where my body started shaking as I was being pushed into the operating room. And I remember how there was just tears in my face, and I couldn't fight them back as I was being put into the operating table. And I remember one of the nurses grabbed my hand and said to me, like, "Are you okay?" And I couldn't answer her back because I was just already weeping. And so she tried to calm me down by saying, "You got this, you're young, you're going to be okay." while my body was just like trying to process everything that was going on. And I was trying to process the fact that I was about to, be disconnected from my cervix, my womb, and the hysterectomy took about 2 to 3 hours because I had my uterus removed, my cervix removed, fallopian tubes removed, and 9 lymph nodes were also removed. So after that surgery was complete, I was under observation, allowing for my body to wake up from the anesthesia because my heart kind of started dropping. My heart rate started dropping as I started to come out of the anesthesia. I started seeing that my heart was dropping, so that kind of put me in a panic. And so I felt like all of a sudden there was this rush of just pain that kicked in where the surgery had taken place. And the nurse just right away gave me like painkillers because she kept telling me, like, breathe, I need you to breathe. And she put the painkillers through the IV, and that kind of just like helped stabilize me. And so the next few hours after the surgery, it consisted of me just waiting to be released because they wanted to make sure that I was able to urinate. And by this time, it had already been like 8 to 9 hours in the hospital. And my husband had fasted with me right before my surgery and up until I was like released from the surgery room. And I was just so thankful that my mom was able to tell him that she would watch over me and that he could go get food because he didn't want to leave my side as soon as he knew that I was out of surgery. And so I was just so happy that when I was finally able to use the restroom, like it was done for me. Like I already wanted to be home. I was almost like forcing myself to drink water so that I could just leave the hospital already. And I remember that drive home with my husband. It was kind of quiet because we were trying to process everything. And as I got home, I was like walking really slowly and moving slowly into my room as my husband kind of helped me put on my pajamas. And so those 6 weeks of recovery consisted of me taking painkillers as needed and having my husband help me change, shower, and I couldn't even bend over. I couldn't reach over to get anything. I couldn't carry anything heavier than a gallon of water. And so my husband and my mom they played a big part in this because they would help me with my meals and cooking. And so I'm just happy that my husband was allowed to take time from work to help take care of me during such a sensitive time for me. And I remember having to be really careful in showering because the incisions that they did in my stomach, abdominal area, were still healing and they needed to scar. And once they scarred, I needed to be careful so that they didn't peel off. And so it was a whole process with that. And I was just happy, like, once they scabbed because they started to fall off slowly. And I had also a lot of friends in my recovery time. I had friends and family that would send me flowers, they sent me fruits and little gifts to show that they cared. And I wanted to share this part of my story in full detail with you because it serves as a reminder to myself of what happened a year ago today. That even though I was in pain physically, I had to focus on taking care of myself and that I was taking those steps to overcome my cancer. And I didn't want this to be something that would hold me back from growing and being able to show that this is something that wasn't going to kill me, but something that was going to help me grow. And so it definitely was a challenge, but I didn't want my ability to not have children weigh me down either. And it definitely has been a year now since my surgery. And now I'm able to slowly, but surely work up my stamina again and walk and move and exercise. And so, I'm just most grateful that I decided to get checked up to want to have kids. Like, if it wasn't for that moment where I decided to get checked up to get ready to be a mother, then if it wasn't for that simple but life changing decision, I would still be living my life with cancer in my womb without my knowledge. And obviously, I wouldn't be here writing about it either. I would not have created a podcast. And potentially, I allowed for the cancer to fully spread and not have a second chance at life. And so I'm here for you to share the importance of staying informed about your reproductive life and organs, about why having painful periods, it's not normal. And I just want to share this with you so that you feel like I'm in your corner, that there's someone in your corner, and I want to be a friend to you. If you or a loved one are experiencing any type of irregular bleeding, trouble losing weight, or even having like extreme fatigue that's not really normal, it definitely listen to your body because it's not normal. And so just a reminder, to please take care of yourself. You are magnificent beyond measure, and you're just a perfect person, even though you have imperfections, and you're wonderful. You're wonderfully made. And remember, from one thriver to another, keep thriving.